What is going on, my no bullshit crew family? It's another edition of You Guessed It, You Can't Make This BS Up. It's your host, Joel Davis, and you know what this podcast is all about? Where we talk about real, true crime stories and real issues that is going on in America today. First and foremost, before I start, y'all know that I have been having the hardest time in my life recently. Y'all know that I have relocated back to Atlanta. I was living in Jessup, Georgia at one time. Currently, right now, my life is a little bit crazy because during the time when I was in South Georgia, I was making a whole lot of financial mistakes to the point that I lost everything. When I said I lost everything, I lost everything. All the way down to me and my wife got separated. We're currently trying to work things out. Just keep us in prayer. I'm always being very thorough with you guys about what I got going on. Currently, right now, I am kind of homeless I am homeless in Atlanta. I got up here, had a good plan, had flight reservations taken care of, even had a job lined up to start the next following week. Also had a car lined up to use and Uber already ready to go. But unfortunately, I got delayed 3 times on my trip. Did not know that while I was incarcerated to do my time in South Georgia, that I had taken an advance out on my Uber card at the time, and I did not get that advancement paid before starting fresh. And by the time I did begin to start Ubering around after getting this vehicle 2 hours late because of delay of plane, even after asking for an extension, which they would not do, I wound up losing the car. Got repoed. My stuff got repoed with it, along with my license, my wallet, my major credit cards, debit cards, and also my social security card and my birth certificate. It sucks too, but thank God I put a stop on my cards, so I keep them locked. So I'm quite sure if anybody tries to use it, I'm going to get an alert. But Zipcar has not made it easy for me to get my stuff back. So I'm just telling people from now on, if you use Zipcar and you do not turn these cars on time or they will not give you that extension, please believe if they put out that repo order, do not cut that car off at all, because if you cut it off or anything like that, that is it. You can't cut it back on. You're stuck, and if you shut the door or you don't have a window down to get your items out that trunk of that car or whatever, your items are literally gone. So you're just out of luck. So please keep that in consideration. But before I start, I want to give a shout out to a business. I'm going to start doing this in the Atlanta area. I'm going to start randomly going to some of these black-owned businesses that have good food and stuff. I'm going to start giving them a shout-out on the podcast. And, hey, if this becomes a cool thing, I might evolve it as giving a whole podcast review about some of these businesses to check out and go to and wine and dine, you know. So the first one up I'm going to give to tonight is off of Rock Bridge Road in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's called New Orleans Seafood. It is owned by a young entrepreneur that he is from the Caribbean islands, but he has the flavor of the New Orleans seafood culture to a science. The plates are reasonable. He's got a special going on right now at lunchtime. You can get 20 wings for $10. Wings and fries for 20 wings for $10. He do sell canned drinks. There are $1.50 a pop, which is not that bad. Speaking on if you get two 12-ounce drinks, that equals up to be 24 ounces, and it'd be about the same you would pay at any of your other restaurants, $3 a pop or whatever. The food is authentic. He's very friendly. They're very nice and very thorough. So please check them out. Like I said before, they are New Orleans seafood over here off of Rock Bridge Road in Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is on the east side of Atlanta, aka the ATL, baby. And if you got anything that you want me to put out there for you, any kind of business, any kind of event that you want me to put a slide in, please email me. I am very reasonable. I'm not going to knock your head off, because right now I know everybody's trying to make it, and I show in the world ain't going to overcharge people, because I know how it is. Believe me, I literally know how it is to try to survive out here. All right, so enough of that. Today, man, we're going to talk about a dirty motherfucker. And when I say he dirty, whoo, this man here is what they call nightmares. You never want your children to ever be around this type of individual. And we're talking about Jeremy Tremaine Williams. Now, he is charged in the death of a pretty and beautiful 5-year-old little girl that passed away back in 2021, which was Kamarie Holland. I had the privilege of talking to her aunt, which was her dad's sister. She gave me a whole lot of clarity about this case when it first cracked open, and they talked about how the mother was under the investigation, or was a person of interest after all that crime she did on TV. Her mother is named Kristy Siple, I think I want to say. I might have got it wrong, but I think it's Kristy Siple. Lord, let me make sure I'm right about this. That's her name. But she was not no good mother at all. Okay, let's put it to you that way. And when you hear this story, I'm going to tell y'all right now, it's going to give you a trigger warning. We're talking about a story where a mother is so strung out on drugs that she does not care about the well-being of her child. And we're talking about a predator who is also strung out on drugs and using this opportunity to prey on a child. You are going to really be upset by how Siple, that's her last name, Kristy Siple, is not held accountable, and how she just basically walks away unscathed. So this is, once again, the case of Jeremy Tremaine Williams and Kamarie Holland. Warning: this documentary concerns the kidnapping and sexual assault and murder of a 5-year-old child. Now, this story contains some disturbing forensic evidence, testimony concerning this child sexual abuse allegations involving other children, and discussion of capital murder, conviction, and scheduled execution. Some details are going to be intentionally described without graphic in a sexual narration, and the purpose is to document this case so that way we can give you the true story and not sensationalize the suffering of the child and bring more unnecessary trauma to the family. Again, rest in peace to beautiful Kamarie Holland. Here it is, August the 13th, 2026. In the state of Alabama, the clock is running. And it's definitely running for Jeremy Tremaine Williams. The end of that clock is scheduled to sometime that day. The state has set an execution window beginning at midnight and extending until 6 o'clock Friday morning. But officials have already reported that their execution is going to be scheduled on time at 6 o'clock tonight Central Time at the Harmon Correctional Facility where all of the death row inmates are held. The crime that brought Williams to Alabama's death row began nearly 5 years ago. And it began with a beautiful young little girl named Kamarie Holland. A little girl from Columbus, Georgia, who loved helping people, who was excited to start kindergarten very soon of the new following year that was approaching. The young child who would give her last to any child she seen that did not have it. At one point, there was a story about this little baby that whenever she saw a child did not have no shoes at a gas station, she asked her mother if she could give the girl one of her own pairs of shoes. And not to mention, she was a child that her mother described was her entire world. But at the same time, this mother forgot about this child being her entire world that day on December the 13th, 2021. Because Kamarie disappeared. She called the police. They began to search. And before the day was over, investigators would find Kamarie's body inside a vacant house in Phoenix City, Alabama, which is about 20 to 35 minutes, give or take, from Columbus, Georgia. Because Columbus borderlines the state of Alabama. And the city it borderlines is, again, Phoenix City, Alabama. In fact, they are so close, they're like sister cities. You got some people that will say in a heartbeat that they still consider themselves a Georgia, but they just live on the Alabama side of Georgia because of Phoenix, Alabama. And the man who once occupied that house was who else but Jeremy Tremaine Williams. But that investigation will reveal something even more disturbing about this man. Because, see, Williams wasn't no stranger who randomly encountered Kamarie. Oh, he knew her mother. He knew her very, very intimately. In fact, she was something like a situationship with a touch of friends with benefits. You know what I'm saying? That's how they got down. And according to prosecutors, Kamarie's mother had agreed to allow Williams to violate her daughter in exchange for money. See, at first, the amount discussed was offered by Williams was $2,500. But then, after some negotiation and, well, you know, I can't afford this, I can't do that, it got down to $1,300. But you know what's crazy? This predator never was going to pay Kamarie's mother any money to get this baby. It was just anything he could say or do to get access. And what followed was this crime involving a kidnapping, a brutal sexual assault, and a murder that would haunt everyone that was involved in this case forever. And not to mention the crime was recorded. A crime that Williams eventually confessed to. A crime that ultimately resulted in 4 capital murder convictions and a death sentence in the state of Alabama. But you got to understand what happened to Kamarie Holland. You have to go back. And this is before December 13th. Before the vacant house. Before the death sentence. You got to look at the people. The relationships. The warnings. The allegations. the children who came before Kamarie, and the moment when adults had opportunities to see danger and said, fuck it, let's look the other way. Like I said, this is the story of Tremaine Williams. This is the story of Kristy Siple, the mother of Kamarie Holland. And above all, it's about this little baby, Kamarie Holland. I know you want to know, who was Kamarie Holland? She was just a beautiful little girl that just wanted to live her life. She was born in November 2016. Really don't know the actual date offhand, but she was 5 years old when she passed away. She lived in Columbus, Georgia area and had connections to Phoenix City, Alabama, just across the Chattanooga River. Her father's name was Kamarie Holland. Now, he had moved to Chicago to the area to be closer to his children. Moved from Chicago to Alabama, to Columbus, Georgia, to be closer to his children. Now, they describe Corey as being a father who loved his children and loved his little girl, Kamarie. And after her death, he will become one of the most outspoken people, demanding not only accountability for the monster that did this, but also for everyone that allowed the monster to do this. But the person the public first heard from after Kamarie's disappearance wasn't Corey. It was her mother, Kristy Siple. And that was the fact that became one of the most haunting elements of this case. Everybody saw this mama crying these crocodile tears that she don't know where her baby is, and her baby just walked out. And the whole time, she was a part of why her baby is missing. Because on the 16th of December, 3 days after she reported this baby missing, the body was found. But Siple, she played the role. She talked about how much she loved her daughter, how much that she missed her smile, and she was just crying about, oh, how good her daughter was. You know, just making people think it was genuine. But was it genuine? Was it just really guilt, or was it lies? Now, she remembered a moment at a gas station about that little girl didn't have shoes that we talked about earlier. But we already know, once again, this was just maybe her way of trying to cover up what she really done. So, it gives us a glimpse of the child before this crime. Because, see, Kamarie wasn't just a case number. She was a little girl who was a 5-year-old victim. She was a child who noticed when nobody else needed help. And according to her father, she was a princess. But unfortunately, all this came to an end on December the 13th. Columbus, Georgia, early morning. Kristy Siple called the police, being frantic on the 911 call. According to the police, Siple said that she had awakened and discovered that Kamarie was gone. The door was open. She said her 5-year-old child was missing. Police immediately issued a critical missing person alert. The case was like a race against time. You got searchers begin to look in, and investigators began asking questions. Who had access to Kamarie? Who knew where she lived? Who had contact with her mother? And where could a 5-year-old child have gone? Investigators quickly focused on a man named Tremaine Williams. See, Williams was 37 years old. And like I said, he had previously lived in Phoenix City. And he had a relationship with Kamarie's mother. Investigators tracked his cell phone. The digital trail became very critical, because the phone data showed movement from Simple residence on Bowman Street to another location, and ultimately towards the area where Williams had previously lived, which was the vacant house on the 15th Avenue of Phoenix City. And it gets even more weirder. That vacant house that he was at was across the street from his aunt. And he hid the car so his aunt wouldn't see him, because they already knew that he had a history, and that history was violating little kids. And we'll get to that in a minute. And that's the same house they found Kamarie Holland dead. Now, this location is going to matter because this is what connected Tremaine Williams to this case. And then it was a crime scene, because when they found Kamarie's body covered with a tarp and insulation, the medical examiner would later determine that Kamarie's death was caused by asphyxiation. Toxicology also detected methamphetamine and ethamphetamine in this child's system. Now, based upon his confession, he was stating that he was in the middle of violating this child, and after he did the deed that he did to her, to make himself be to the point of getting satisfaction, he basically drugged this child, forced the drug on this child. You can't make this shit up. Now, as this murder investigation is beginning, everybody know now he's the center of it. And then the investigators located him that night in a motel in Phoenix City. He was arrested. And when he was arrested, he was taken downtown. Now, the police knew they got the right guy, but their questions were, why did you do this? Why Kamarie? Why did you go to an abandoned house? And how in the hell did you got access to this child? And how did her mother come into play with all this? So they started talking to Tremaine Williams. And that's where it gets a little complicated. Because despite the enormity of the crimes he was ultimately convicted of, there's surprisingly little reliable public information about Williams' actual childhood and how he grew up, or his parents and things of that nature. But there's always been known by people in close sources that he's always had a problem with being a predator against children. Now, a lot of people would probably want to know, was he abused? Was he abandoned? Was he violent as a child? Did somebody fail him? Like I said, it really don't tell you what happened to him and why he act the way he act. But it is apparent that he's been doing this towards children for a long time. Let's go back to 2009, way before Kamarie Holland's murder. Tremaine Williams was faced with child abuse charges in Alabama. So what happened is, I don't know if this child is his son or it was a family member or a girlfriend that he was dealing with, child. But he was allegedly accused of harming his 3-year-old boy. They said that he put the child in very hot water, boiling water. That's right, not hot water, boiling water. Now, he was prosecuted, but in 2012, he got acquitted. That's right, because his defense team basically said, hey, y'all can't blame this on him. That child had the one that made that boiling hot water happen and got in that tub or have all these injuries. So he walked out with no conviction. That would be another part of the history that nobody talks about. And it gets worse, because before that, in 2005, he was in Alaska. Now, when he was living in Alaska, his daughter was named Naudia Tremaine Williams. She died as an infant in Alaska. Now, he became a suspect, but he was never charged because they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute him. And even after he got killed yesterday by lethal injection, this case remains unsolved and still open. Now, after years passed, that's when the Kamarie Holland investigation began. And during that arrest in Alabama, that's when investigators began revisiting the history of all the things that he's done. And then Williams made statements during his interrogation that made them want to reopen the case. He basically said that he basically violated his daughter and killed her too, in so many words. Now, again, just because he said that, he's never been to trial, so he is not convicted of this, and this is all allegations of alleged. So when it comes to his daughter, Naudia Williams' death, again, in Alaska, That case is still open. And if you got any information about that case in 2005, even though he is no longer with us and busting hell wide open, please call the local authorities over there in Alaska. But it does mean that the death of an infant daughter became part of a much larger law enforcement investigation. And now it raises one of the hardest questions in this story. Could something have been stopped years earlier? We may have never got the answer to that question. Now, without going all in on on Jeremy Tremaine Williams, there was also allegations involving other children that was allegedly accused by Williams. Okay, so these are alleged allegations that never been proven. Now, there's a witness that did testify on the witness stand that dating back to when she was 5 years old, and it was a relative of Williams. I don't know if it was his daughter or someone else, but it said that she was also assaulted by him when she was 5 years old. Then another relative that was a young female that talked about she was abused when she was 9 years old by this man. Prosecutors presented evidence concerning Williams' own statements about abusing children, and it was very profoundly disturbing. He would brag about how he would teach these children how to do the things he wanted them to do to him while looking at adult content. That's right. While looking at porn, he would teach and encourage these children to do those same acts on him. Man, you can't make this sick shit up. Now we're going to talk about Kristy Siple, the mother of this child, the second major failure of an adult in this story. Kristy Marie Siple, who also got an alias of Kristy Marie Siple. Has an alias as Kristy Hoskins. I'm sorry. She was Kamarie's mother. Now, public reporting does not really provide a reliable, detailed account of Siple's childhood. But when I talked to the aunt and got the backstory of the mother, that this woman has always been a wild child since she was a teenager, and that she's always, as a young adult, been struggling with drug abuse. This just ain't nothing that just started. She's been struggling with this substance abuse all her life. Now, what we do know that by the time that she became involved in this case, she was a mother of 4 children and 3 boys. Okay? And Kamarie. So that is a total of 8 children this woman has had. They also got documents of previous child endangerment concerns. And the thing that I was gathering from this woman is that all her children, and this even from the aunt had told me, have all been taken away from her. She had no custody of no child. She was so horrible with kids. Again, she had a no contact order with the last child, which was Kamarie. And not to mention, too, she was supposed to always have supervision with these children. Now, prosecutors going to let her describe Siple's methamphetamine addiction as part of the circumstances surrounding her conduct and behavior. And then she had this situationship with the devil himself, Jeremy Williams. And this is going to be critical because prosecutors said that Williams eventually asked Siple to allow him access to Kamarie for his twisted sexual desires. Now, I know you're going to ask, well, Joel, how in the world would this mother, even being high as Giraffe's ass, is going to allow this man to have access to her child when she says she loved this child so much and want her child back? I'm about to break that down to you. Because, see, This dirty bastard, Jeremy Williams, had told her beforehand in the past that he liked little girls. That was his fantasy. He loved access to be a predator to young girls. And her crazy ass, so drug fueled, because you know when you on them drugs, the only thing you thinking about is getting high and having orgasm after orgasm is the only thing she could think about. Getting a fix and riding the dick. Yeah, I said it. So according to the prosecutors, this is going back to the money. The agreement started at $2,500, which was offered originally by Jeremy Tremaine Williams. He told her, listen, if you give, I give you $2,500 so I can get access to this little girl. Okay? Then the amount got reduced some way, somehow, approximately to $1,300. And the prosecutor said Williams never intended to pay anyway. Think about that. This child's innocence and safety was worth a measly $1,300 damn dollars. And it was negotiated at first being $2,500. Why about not putting your child in that type of situation? Now, an adult mother allegedly treating access to her own daughter as something that could be bought and sold is despicable. Okay? And that's where trafficking comes into play, and she gets charged with that later. But we'll talk about that in a minute in the podcast. Because at the center of the allegation is a 5-year-old child who could not consent, who could not negotiate, who could not understand the danger, who depended entirely upon adults. And according to the prosecutors, the adults failed her. So now we got December the 12th going into December the 13th, the night before Kamarie's disappearance. That's when the phone records will be a crucial part of the prosecutor's case. Investigators reconstructed moments between Columbus and Phoenix City. Now, Williams left Siple residence, which was like an extended hotel, and he traveled towards locations connected to him. Now, the first spot he went to was his current wife's house. Now, this is what I get so pissed off about, because his wife said that she saw him with this baby. Saw him with the baby. First thing she come out her mouth is, wow, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Why you got this baby with you? You know, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You see him got a 5-year-old baby with him. You know this man's history. You know this man is a sicko. He preys on children. Didn't common sense do apply to get you to go and call the cops and get them to get this baby to safety? No. What did his wife tell him to do? Take this girl away from here. I don't want her at my property. I don't want her here. And that's exactly what he did. And then after that, that's when he went up there to fix it, Phoenix City. And then he went straight to that vacant house across the street from where his aunt at. Because he didn't want his aunt to see his vehicle over there. And that's when he did all the things that he wanted to do to that little girl. And he recorded the act like it was another day at the damn park. Yeah, I mean, this is disturbing what he did. And then after he did that, that's when he panicked. And he was like, all right, well, I done did this deed. Now I got to get rid of this child. So that's when he decided to drug her. And then he found out that wasn't going to do it fast enough. He fucking strangled her. What a bastard. Now, the jury was shown the video evidence during the trial. And God knows, I know they needed therapy. Because if I would have seen that, I would have jumped over and beat his ass. The state used Williams' own recordings and evidence against him. And thank God, I would never play this shit here. So you ain't got to worry about that. But I could just imagine the torture. That's why I don't want to do jury duty, guys. I'm telling you now, I might do true crime, but I don't want to see that shit. Because that is like horrific. But because all this happened, it was the evidence Williams created for himself, and it was the shit that was going to get him convicted. Now, back in Columbus, during this search time, Kamarie had been like reported missing, right? So the police are just searching. They trying to find out where this child is at. And they was already closing in on Williams. They already done got his cell phone data. They already got his movements. They already know he was disconnected at this vacant house. And that's why they was able to find Kamarie. Now the officers had their body camera footage. How emotionally impact that they felt when they found this child in this type of situation. I mean, just think about it. This is near Christmas time, and these people that work in the scene, they got children her age or a little bit older than her. That, yeah, man, that's enough to destroy anybody's mindset. And you got female cops that probably was on that scene too that got children that age. That's a lot, bro. While this is going on, Kristy is all on the TV crying about she missed her baby. She want her Kamarie back. And then she talked about donating her daughter's toys, which was fucking weird. Because why are you donating your daughter's toys if you're trying to find her? But anyway, she played this whole, she was my life, I lived for her every day. I mean, lived for her daily. I want you to think about that line that I just said. She was my life, I lived for her daily. But that's not what you did. Because when it come to the investigators, they found out that Siple was just as complicit as the man that did the things to her daughter. That's why on the 28th of December, 2021, she was arrested 2 weeks and a day later from the time she reported that child missing. Now, Siple was facing some time too. She was facing charges including human trafficking and felony murder. Now, this was devastating because they done had Williams saying, hey, she agreed to this. We had a monetary agreement that I was never going to pay. But then things would finally change up because on March of 2024, they decided to drop the murder charges as she pleaded guilty to first-degree human trafficking. And I think that the father, because, you know, they have to, when these people make these deals, please believe they got to talk to the family. They got to talk to the victim's family. And I think that the father was like, you know, Kamarie still loved her mama, even though her mama was on drugs, this, that, and the third. I'm just going to like, yeah, okay. I'll drop the murder charge, you know. Yeah, she'll do a 20-year bid, but she got to live with what she did to our daughter. I think that just shows you what kind of heart that he has. Me, I would never agree to that shit. I would have said, give her the same amount of time that he got. I want her to get death too. If he got death, I want her to get death. And I don't want her to have no appeals. Or any appeals she do, I want her to run through them where they get denied immediately. But anyway, she get a 20-year piece, which I think is disgusting. Now she's got to require to register as a sex offender and pay fines, which I'm glad that she gets to register as a sex offender because now when she get out, whatever man that she tries to lay up under, they should be quite aware that this sicko don't need to be around no children at all. And don't even need to have a puppy or a kitten. Now, she also agreed to testify against Williams when he went to trial. But she wound up not being called as a witness during his trial because the prosecution was like, shit, we got enough evidence to fry this bastard. Now, while the prosecution was building this case, Kamarie's father, Kamarie Holland, was living through something that no parent should ever have to experience. His daughter was dead, and the person who had been responsible for her care had been charged with helping put her in danger. Again, Corey moved from Chicago to Columbus, Georgia to be close to his children. And to see that his youngest child is destroyed like that, his baby girl, his princess, man, that's enough to destroy any man's spirit. But he took that energy and became an advocate for her after her death. He actually started pushing for laws, especially one that he's pushing for right now in the state of Alabama, which is called Kamarie's Law. That goal was to create protections for children and addresses issues he believed that had contributed to what happened. He also spoke publicly about the loss of his daughter because after Williams was convicted, Corey said there could never really be enough justice because justice couldn't give him his Kamarie back. And that is one of the most important truths in these cases, man. These victims lose their loved ones. They can't never get them back, no matter how much justice you give them. You can give these people 110 years, death penalty, whatever. They're still not going to bring that loved one back. Because the conviction, all it can do is punish the defendant, and the execution can end the defendant's life. But not all of that can restore the life of a beautiful 5-year-old girl who left this world too soon. Now, there was another piece of evidence that will become central to the case. Christmas night, December 25th, 2021, Williams was incarcerated and he began talking. He told jail personnel that he wanted to confess. And he did a lengthy recorded confession. We talking about 5 long hours. Williams admitted responsibility for Kamarie's rape and murder. He explained why he was talking. According to trial reporting, Williams said he wanted to get right with God before he was executed. Williams, I hate to tell you this, fam, but what you did, hell will be your home. You only confessed it because you knew, as you just said, you getting executed. That's the only reason why. If you wasn't getting executed, you think you would have gave 2 shits about God and getting it right? No, you wouldn't. And he didn't stop with Kamarie. He made statements concerning other alleged crimes against children, especially a statement about his oldest daughter, Naudia, including statements concerning other alleged sexual assaults. Again, they were separated from the convictions. But the prosecutors had something that nobody else in his camp had. The defendant himself was describing in detail like a grocery list of what he done. So in March of 2024, Marcus pleaded guilty to capital charges. Now, you thought that might have ended the trial, but it didn't, because Alabama law requires a jury to determine guilt in a capital case when the state was seeking the death penalty. So Williams still went before a jury, and the prosecution presented its case. Jury heard from the investigators. They heard from the medical examiner. They heard about the digital evidence that this fool had created. They saw the evidence recovered from the crime scene. They even watched portions of the recordings Williams had made, the nasty bastard. The prosecution's message was simple. This was a case built on speculation. Williams had been caught. He had a digital trail. He had digital evidence and physical evidence connected to the crime, and he confessed. The jury deliberated and returned with a guilty verdict. 4 capital murder convictions. One involving the murder of a child under 14. One involving murder during kidnapping. One involving murder during rape. And one involving murder during sodomy. See, I told you, man, that's what Alabama do. I keep telling y'all, Alabama, Texas, and Mississippi, and Georgia do that shit too when they want to. But mostly, like I said, Alabama, Texas, Mississippi, and the state of Louisiana and Florida, they believe in stacking murder charges on you on one person. They will make one person that you tortured seem like you killed 5 people off that one person. They do that so that way everything will stick. So when they take you to trial and you get convicted of a guilty, you get convicted all across the board. And that verdict was unanimous. Jeremy Tremaine Williams was convicted of capital murder. They wanted to know what the punishment was going to be next. Life without parole or death. Oh, you know what the punishment was. Because on April 15, 2024, Judge David Johnson sentenced Jeremy Tremaine Williams to death. But the sentencing proceedings also opened the door to the testimony about Williams' history. The jury in court heard allegations involving other children. They heard testimony from a young woman who said Williams had sexually assaulted her when she was a child. They heard testimony involving a younger relative. They heard about Naudia, Williams' infant's daughter. The court was not deciding whether Williams was guilty of every allegation ever made against him. It was examining the broader circumstances relevant to sentencing, and the result was death. Now, everybody want to know why the hell he want to die. Well, this case took an extraordinary turn on that, because Williams didn't spend decades fighting to stay alive. He asked the court to speed up his execution. In 2025, he sought to waive further appeals. The court examined whether he was competent to make that decision. He was found competent, and the appellate process moved forward. In March 2026, Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals upheld his conviction and death sentence. Williams continued seeking an expedited execution, and then Governor Kay Ivey set the execution window. And that's how we arrived to that window yesterday. Okay? Jeremy Tremaine Williams is 41 years of age. He is incarcerated in Alabama's death row. And barring intervention, the state plans to execute him by lethal injection. Now, this is going to be at the location where death row is at, the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. Now, this is supposed to be scheduled at 6 p.m. Central Time. Now, Governor Ivey's order established a broader window extending through 6 a.m. to August 14th. So, let's talk about that window and what happened. Oh, we about to get down, baby. We about to talk about old jackass. Did he leave this world, and how did he leave? Well, I got y'all. You know, I did my research. Y'all know I got you. Okay? So let's talk about that last time. So yesterday, Jeremy Tremaine Williams ate his final meal. He had Philly cheesesteak, which I would have took a shit all in. Cheese pizza, which I would have pissed on. He entered the execution chamber. At approximately 5:53 p.m., Alabama began carrying out the sentence. Well, at least they did it 7 minutes early. They didn't wait till 6 o'clock on the dot. Williams gave his final statement. He thanked God for forgiveness. He said he hoped to meet God in peace. And then he said good night. Yeah, okay, buddy. You might as well. I hope you got plenty of ice water, because where you going at, hell about to be your home. At 6:16 p.m., Jeremy Tremaine Williams was pronounced dead. The state of Alabama had executed him. The case was over. But Kamarie's story still remains. And maybe that's the part we need to remember. Because an execution is a period at the end of a criminal case. It isn't a resurrection. It doesn't bring the child home. It doesn't repair a family through its trauma and through the actual anguish of never getting their child back. It doesn't give a father another birthday to see his child grow. Again, justice can punish. Justice can hold people accountable. But justice can't turn back the hands of time, and it cannot give you back what you lost. My thoughts on this case, man. As I did this case, standing here tonight, out here in the open in ATL, first and foremost, I'm very upset with Jeremy Williams' wife. I feel like if that broad would have got her head out her ass and picked up that phone and called the police and tell them that he had some strange ass little girl in his house or at their house at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't feel comfortable because he's not answering questions, She could have saved that child's life. She could have easily stood and said, yeah, sure, baby. You can bring her in, or y'all just hang out there. You shouldn't be in there like that. Keep them in a control area where she could at least got this girl to safety. That's number one. Number two, I'm upset with Holland, Kamarie Holland's mama, Kristy Hopkins, or whatever she want to call herself this week. She was a disgusting excuse for a mother. I feel like that she should have got put down like a dog like he did. Because what she did, there's a special place in hell for her too. You sold your child for $1,300 that you never got just to your so-called jump-off boyfriend that you knew was a predator. Bragged about being a predator, told you he was a predator. Man, and then finally, last but not least, that really hurt me and made me mad about this case was the fact of the matter is that this woman took advantage of her baby daddy's kindness for weakness, because at the end of the day, she should have done the right thing, having that time with her child and focus on being around her child, and she did. Only thing she could focus on is when she could get another hit. And with doing so, she basically sold her child out. And as for the father, I feel bad for him because he's always going to think that it was his fault. And it really wasn't his fault. This was a situation that could have happened to anybody. Anybody. Rest in peace to Kamarie Holland. I hope that her family finds peace and closure after all the things that has transpired. I'm definitely going to try to remember her as much as I can every time I do anything or go to get any seafood. I'm definitely going to be remembering her. And also rest in peace to Tremaine Williams. I hope your ass is frying. I hope you frying so good in hell that you smell like crackling. I'm serious, because you have no right to be in you don't even have no right to see the gates of heaven. Not even be by it. Not even to see it, because you're just a monster, a straight evil ass monster. That's all I got, y'all. Please, y'all, take the time to take care of yourself. Please like, please share. Continue, whatever you do, continue to be aware of the rules and regulations when you got custody. And parents, if it says in the custody decree that parent needs to have supervision until further notice, do that, please. Follow and comply, because you don't want to be in these situations here. For real. Definitely comply. But that's all I got for you guys. Good night. Stay safe. I'm out.